I want to take you over now and just a quick review before we go on camera and do the dress rehearsal, just to make sure that everybody has, first of all, done their homework, and secondly, fully understands the process of where you've come. And by doing a quick summary, you'll get an idea of if there's anything left unfinished. This is not the end. You can always go back, watch the replays, and go do more of it. I hope everybody's clear on that. Is if you're feeling inadequate in any one of these areas, in any of the stages, simply go back to the replays and do more work. Because it is a process, and all you have to do is just go back to, if you feel that you didn't do enough in planning, just go back and do more in planning. That's all. So speaking of planning, week number 1, here's what we did. We've identified a target market. At this point in time, you should be really clear that you have a hungry market. And if you don't, you need to go back and do some more work. But right now, you need to know who your hungry market is, because the importance before you go out and do any kind of media messaging, if you go to a market that's not hungry, for instance, if you go to a market where there is no market, you're going to end up doing a whole lot of work and not getting any results. So all of these steps are so key, and I hope you understand the priority I'm putting on this first week, this planning week, because if you can get these sections nailed, your messaging and your promotion, if you get to the third big P, the promote phase, it's going to be so much more effective if you get this. Okay, let's assume that everybody has a hungry market right now. Next thing you want to do is determine who your ideal target audience is. And here we can actually identify our avatar. We call this our ideal client or our ideal customer avatar. And I want you to think of this person as the ideal person that would be consuming your message. So after a media interview, if you're doing an interview, whether it's a podcast or a webcast, if you were to think of the person on the other end, who would that person be ideally? I want you to have a very clear picture. And don't be general here, be specific. Bring it down to an individual, a person. And if you can get a picture of that person, post that picture on your wall. I like to post the picture on my laptop or on my camera. Because as you're doing these interviews, you actually need to look at that friendly face. You can look at that person as if that is the person you're speaking to. So I'm hoping at this point that everybody has a very clear avatar, and that avatar then makes up your target audience. Next, we determine what that target topic is. And the topic generally we call a focus keyword phrase. So that topic could be business consulting. It could be stress management. And by now you should have that short keyword phrase as a focus point of all your messaging. Then what we did is we looked at identifying target influencers. These are people that we want to partner with later. And we can partner with them just by finding a way to add value to them. And one of the ways of adding value to these influencers is present yourself as an expert, as a content provider, and be interviewed by them. Because many of these people have their own talk shows and they have their own podcasts that you just have to reach out and say, hey, I would like to be interviewed on your show. I'm an expert in blank. And if you did all the previous work and you've gotten some interviews under your belt, you created that authority site and you created that media page, you'll have something to show them. And then you just simply go to your target influencer list. And this is not one person. This could be pages and pages of influencers that you want to reach out to. And all of this is for the purpose of getting your target messaging for the purpose of the interview. Remember, we talked about Q1, Q2, Q3, and your responses to that. So it's A1, answer 1, answer 2, answer 3, or R1, however you want to word it, response 1, response 2, response 3. When you get that down into bite-sized chunks and you can learn that material solid, you're preparing yourselves for the actual messaging, the media interview, which of course then leads to getting that out to the market. So target media publications, blogs, podcasts, online magazines. And remember, we created a spreadsheet that consisted of 10 columns, and these are the 10 columns that are listed here. And it's really just a matter of doing a deep dive in Google, We presented other tools that you could use, but really you don't need them. You could just do Google search and go do what's called a deep dive. Search different topics based on your, I'm getting a little pop-up, someone's calling here, which by the way is another teaching point. If you turn off notifications, I do have my notifications turned off, but I received a pop-up. Make sure that when you're doing online interviews that you have notifications turned off so that your interviews are not, your recordings are not interrupted by those annoying pop-ups. And that was my mother, so it's she'd take offense to that. But you know what I mean. My mother is number one. My mother is number one. If you have not done this yet, please do your spreadsheets. Go back and do the work on that. Okay, let's pop over to week number 2. Week number 2, we're creating a compelling title. We call that the hot title. Identify that hot title that's going to get the click. And then next thing you do is you create the storyboard outline and script. And again, that was we simplified that. A storyboard outline is simply a visual representation of the essence of your message. So this is your Q1, Q2, and Q3. And then the script, writing the script out first in detail, but then not memorizing it and not reading it. We don't want to read and we don't want to memorize because we want to be extemporaneous so that we know our subject so well that the languaging comes out different each time, but it maintains the essence of the message. That's really key. Okay, then over in week number 3, we got to practice all that. And here's where we had an opportunity to just interview each other and be interviewed by each other, which brings us to week number 4. And I'm going to give you a lot of tech stuff right here. And you'll also receive this via email. I'll make sure that you have a download of this presentation so that you can go out and make some decisions, maybe purchasing decisions, and possibly even some technical changes that you might make to your current setup, which is designed to make you, actually, let me just jump back. I want to address your attention to week 3. There was something in here that is a really good, it's a good mind trigger. It's a trigger to keep in mind that when you're practicing, you focus on the 3 V's of communication. I want you to think of this when you practice. Verbal is what we say. So as I just mentioned, the scripting is the what we say, and the extemporaneous message is the what we say. The vocal is how we sound. So this could be not only our vocal, our communication vocal, but this could also be technology that affects the audio. So I want you to think of that 2 different ways. And the visual is how we look and all of the various factors that we're going to cover in the visual. Okay, so let's jump back to presentation and go through some of this information. So remember, you're already here in week number 4 to be interviewed by Maria. So I know you're really excited to do that, to get started, but before I started this recording, I had an opportunity to look at everybody on screen visually, and I gave you some coaching tips. There's some other things that you can continue to do after this presentation that you can take away and you can apply that's even going to enhance that visual even more. So we're getting you ready for a dress rehearsal. And again, a dress rehearsal is just designed to get yourself in a position before you're actually doing the interview with a host. So this would be a formal interview. Get yourself in a position where you can record yourself on camera, where you've taken all the necessary steps as if it was the real deal. So this is acting as if this is the actual interview. So do everything that you would do if it was the real thing.